I would stop engaging in a tit-for-tat tariff war with the United States because it's not a war we're going to win, okay? We're putting tariffs on their products is only going to make matters worse for consumers here in Canada.
Canada is facing one of its biggest economic challenges yet. The Bank of Canada is slashing interest rates, and the government is hitting back at Trump's tariffs.
Government of Canada, following a dollar-for-dollar approach, will be imposing 25% reciprocal tariffs on an additional $29.8 billion of imports from the United States.
But is this the right move, or are we making things worse? The Bank of Canada has lowered interest rates again as Canada deals with growing trade tensions. The Canadian government has responded to tariffs from the Trump administration by placing tariffs of its own. However, economist David Rosenberg argues that this is the wrong approach.
At a time when there's the potential where we're going to lose 400,000 jobs if Trump comes through with all of his tariff actions against our country, the last thing that the consumer needs is an added squeeze on their incomes from tariff action.
He believes Canada should focus on a smarter plan to protect jobs and keep its economy strong. Back in 1984, Brian Mulroney became Prime Minister and later pushed for a free trade agreement with the U.S.
Current environment looks similar to 1984. Now, 1984, I have to cast my mind back, Brian Mulroney became Prime Minister that year, and he pushed through the free trade agreement, for example.
Well, he pushed through the free trade agreement years later, and of course, working with Ronald Reagan and then George H.W. Bush.
At the time, John Turner, a well-known business leader, briefly gained public support but quickly lost in an election. Rosenberg believes something similar is happening today.
But the comparison I was drawing was how John Turner was the white knight coming from Bay Street at that point and enjoyed a honeymoon period. And the next thing you know, after the election, the Tories swept. So I was drawing the comparison really just to what's happening right now with Mark Carney's honeymoon period.
With Mark Carney gaining popularity, he argues that history shows reacting too quickly without a long-term plan can lead to failure. The Canadian government's decision to impose tariffs in response to U.S. tariffs may not be the best strategy.
And tariffs, tit-for-tat tariffs, not the answer.
When tariffs go up, the cost of imported goods rises, making everyday items more expensive for Canadian consumers. If Trump enforces all his planned tariffs, Canada could lose 400,000 jobs, and the unemployment rate could rise to nearly 8%.
At a time when there's the potential where we're going to lose 400,000 jobs if Trump comes through with all of his tariff actions, and that would take the unemployment rate up towards 8%.
Instead of simply retaliating, Rosenberg suggests Canada should focus on using its economic strengths to its advantage.
Well, you do it strategically through either export bans or export taxes. Let them pay. Why should consumers here pay back because we're going to retaliate on tariffs?
By placing export taxes or bans on resources that the U.S. relies on, such as potash, uranium, nickel, aluminum, and electricity, Canada could gain more leverage without directly harming its own economy as much.
Strategically, especially for critical minerals. Where are they going to get their potash? Where are they going to get their uranium, their nickel, their aluminum, their electricity? Like, I thought that Doug Ford was on the right track.
The uncertainty surrounding U.S. trade policies makes it difficult for Canada to rely on long-term agreements. Trump initially praised the USMCA trade deal, but his administration has since moved to alter its terms. Rosenberg argues that Canada should not depend on trade deals with the U.S. and should instead work on strengthening its own economy to be more self-sufficient and less vulnerable to unpredictable policy changes.
Hey, what's Europe doing right now, the EU? They're trying to find endogenous ways to grow their economy. Germany is finally getting rid of the fiscal constraints, pipeline expansion, oil and gas expansion in India. You look around the world and countries are trying to find a way to wean themselves off their dependence, especially on the United States. Okay, that's necessity.
Rather than engaging in a tariff war, Canada should focus on strategies that boost its economy. One of the key steps would be lowering interest rates, which would help stimulate economic growth and make Canadian exports more competitive. Reducing corporate taxes would also be beneficial.
Big tax cuts, okay? Big tax cuts. One of the largest mistakes that the Trudeau government made was after 2017, when Trump cut the top corporate tax rate to 21%, we did nothing. And it's stuck. The effective tax rate with provincial abatements sits at 28%.
As Canada's current tax rate of 28% is significantly higher than the US rate of 21%. Lower taxes would make it easier for businesses to remain in Canada and encourage investment. Over the past decade, Canada has lost approximately $1 trillion in business investments, creating jobs and economic growth. Additionally, streamlining regulations and reducing unnecessary government restrictions would allow businesses to operate more efficiently and contribute to economic expansion.
We talk about net capital outflows, net direct investment outflows out of Canada. The problem has not been capital coming into Canada, okay? The problem has been in the past 10 years, $1 trillion of Canadian physical capital, direct investment, $1 trillion in 10 years has left the country.
Canada is not the only country working to protect its economy. Other nations have adopted strategies that focus on long-term growth rather than short-term reactions. Germany is investing in infrastructure and increasing military spending.
Germany is finally getting rid of the fiscal constraints. They're going to embark on fiscal stimulus that's going to boost military spending out of necessity. Not just that, but also infrastructure.
India is expanding its energy sector to reduce its reliance on foreign oil.
India right now is embarking on plans to dramatically reduce their dependence on foreign energy.
The European Union is working to trade more with other countries in an effort to become less dependent on the US.
What's Europe doing right now? The EU. They're trying to find endogenous ways to grow their economy. Countries are trying to find a way to wean themselves off their dependence, especially on the United States.
These examples show that planning for the future is more effective than reacting impulsively to every trade dispute. Instead of retaliatory tariffs, Canada should adopt a smarter economic strategy.
I think that we have to actually, right away, convene Parliament, emergency session, and embark on a major tax cut. Now, I'm talking about a major tax cut for the business sector.
Lowering interest rates, cutting business taxes, limiting exports of key resources, and reducing excessive regulations would create a stronger and more stable economy.
Back in 2017, 2018, we never should have let our tax gap in the business sector. Oh, there's that word again, businesses. I mean, I get this all the time, you know, but I guess it doesn't play in Peoria. You got to talk about the people. I keep on telling, you know, that 2/3 of the people are employed by the business sector.
By shifting from reactionary policies to proactive strategies, Canada can better protect its industries, encourage job growth, and navigate trade challenges with confidence. So is Canada on the right path, or do we need to rethink our approach? Let's hear from you. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Should Canada take a different route in this trade war? If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more insights, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.